Hi, my friends. Today I am teaching you how to paint these easy gouache flowers, so stick around. All right, so today I have my number 6 round brush. We're just going to get right into it. My watercolor paper is taped down, and I'm going to start putting some colors on my palette here, or mixing tray, which is a metal tray. I do love it when mixing colors for gouache. So we're going to do our blooms, some red ones, some purple ones, even some blue. Now gouache is different than watercolor if you're used to watercolor because it is a little bit more forgiving. It's a little bit different to paint with, of course, but if you mess up and you don't like a layer you did, you can just layer over it light to dark, dark to light. I'm just going to mix some of this purple up here, a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. And I think what I'll do is start, I've got a sketch right here. You don't have to use a sketch. I'm going to start by just outlining, doing my basic wash of color and going over my sketch. And this medium purple color is going to be the color for my flowers. Well, the big flowers anyway, because we'll be doing a few other types as well with different colors. So just like with watercolor, you're going to do a basic wash over of color. Don't worry too much about this part. Not that I want you to ever worry. You shouldn't worry because we're supposed to be delighting in this practice. Look at how red my water is already, by the way. I just think that's pretty cool. Okay, so this flower has 6 petals. And if you're noticing this, the petals, at least for a lot of flowers, tend to be a lot thinner towards the middle, and they're going to get a lot thicker as they branch out towards the end, away from the middle of the flower. Just something to keep in mind as you're practicing sketching, working on your florals, and a little bit of a tip right there. It's okay if you paint too much in the center like I just did there, because it's gouache, so you can paint over it. I could paint some yellow over that, and it's going to do just fine. All right, let's get in a few more petals here on this next side-facing flower. And so these 2 petals that I've just painted are going to look a lot smaller than the ones that I'm painting now. And where we're placing our center is going to also show the perspective of the flower. So since I'm wanting to make sure this flower looks like it's facing to the side just a little bit, making those top petals there look a little bit smaller, making the other ones look a little bit longer, we're going to place our center to the left of the middle. And you'll see that in a moment when I show you that. All right, one last purple flower here for composition. And when you are working on your composition and you want it to have an interesting and attractive look, if you have an odd number of objects, it's going to be a lot more interesting to the eye versus if you have an even amount of objects. If I had 4 flowers here, my brain would be having my eye, whatever, moving from pair of flowers to pair of flowers. You kind of pair up and group up your flowers or objects in pairs of 2, if that makes sense. And then you get kind of bored and you move on. But if you have an odd number, your eye is always trying to pair up, but then you pair these 2, but then these 2, and you get to a point where there's a lot to look at and your brain isn't getting tired of it. So I'm doing this rose really quickly. If you guys need to pause and rewind, go ahead. I'm doing these C-curve shapes, but also just kind of scratchy marks, leaving a lot of white space. And the reason I'm being so, not as careful as normal, and I'm working fast is, first of all, I have a sketch, so I'm kind of following that. Second of all, this is gouache, and I know that I can go over it with other colors if I didn't leave enough white space or whatever. Third of all, I want to have a very loose composition, loose object, and so doing this is going to give me that. All right, we've got some blue here for some tiny little flowers, and I am moving fast with this. Gouache does tend to dry out, which is not necessarily a reason to move quickly, but I'm going to add some white to my blue here. But I'm moving fast because I do want to have a loose style in this composition. I don't want to have everything so tightly wound together, if that makes sense. So I'm doing these little kind of star-shaped petals, 5 or 6 petals, and going really fast. I still have that pointed number 6 round brush. And if you want, you can even do some little blobs there for 1 or 2 petals there, kind of poking through. If we have a nice tight bundle of flowers, you're gonna see a lot less white space. So now I wanna work with my greens. So I've got kind of a turquoise, lovely dark green color and my light green. And I'm going to mix those two together because I'm going to try to make my own darker green as we're starting out. Adding some red will tone it down and desaturate it so it's not so bright. And then we're a little bit more water will be good. And knowing how much water to gouache is tough, but you do need enough water so that your paint will spread. Otherwise, it's just gonna just be too chunky and not move on the paper. Too much water is gonna make it water down like watercolor. And we're wanting to be able to have more opaque, less transparent layers here, where we can layer over the top and, you know, one layer disappears as you add another layer over. It can go lighter and could go darker. So some really easy, simple flowers. I'm adding some more light green to this and just doing some stems. You can do any type of leaves that you want. I'm just using the brush head to be able to make a little mark here. And that's the shape of my leaf right over here. And let's go ahead and do another one on the top right side. It's a bigger leaf with some nice jagged edges to it. And I'm going to quickly just fill this in because we'll add 2 more layers to make this really stand out and pop. I might do lighter, I might do darker, we'll see. Another one like this will be great. And if you wanted to use these leaves, I love these leaves, and you can just do this exclusively. You can do whatever you want, it's your painting, but I just think it's fun to change up the type of leaves since we have several different types of flowers as well. And just kind of paint that in quickly. So I'm moving quickly. We might slow down just a little bit as we're doing the details. And that's the part where we start to get a little bit more intricate. A little bit of yellow here on my palette, my mixing tray. I'm going to do this cadmium yellow, which might look kind of orange in the video, but just a lemon yellow and a cadmium yellow is making this really nice, vibrant yellow here. We're stippling it in the center of our flowers, our purple flowers. And we're going to do several layers of details here. So this is just quick and easy. Remember, that first layer is the most stress-free thing. As long as you know what you're painting, or you have a sketch, or you have an idea of a composition you're going for, no worries, because you can always add in details and totally change up what you got going on. So this lavender color, mixed some white in now with the purple. Add a little more added purple here because you don't want it to be too thin. And it's just something you feel out. I suggest just doing some exercises with putting your paint on paper and seeing how it moves with lots of water and with less water. And each brush, of course, is going to be different as well. Some brushes, especially the thin ones, need a lot more water for that pigment to move because it's holding so little paint and water. All right, I'm making these scratchy marks here coming out of the center of our flower. It's a very light lavender color, almost white. And I'm going to outline the edges of the petals as well. And then we can go ahead and take our brush that's been dipped in water and dabbed on a paper towel and start to blend it out if we want. If you don't want to, you can just leave it how it is. It almost looks like chalk to me as I'm looking at this here. And so we're going to do the same thing, a little bit more paint here. Again, feeling it out, experimenting. The only way to figure it out is just doing, right? And so we'll outline the rest of these petals. It's very, very light. And I did want that medium, I wanted to say dark purple. It is darker, but it's more of a medium shade. We could go a lot darker with this, believe me. I wanted that to just kind of shine and be the focal point, you know, instead of having a lot of other colors layered on top. So I just want, I really enjoy flowers that have a lot of layers in the center. And so we're going to do a little bit of that with some stippling of some black later. And, you know, see how that looks with some dots as well. It's going to make them look real fancy, real fancy. All right, so now I have my clean brush and I am just blending out that paint as I said I was going to do. Just blending it out and spreading it out so that we just have a little bit more of a softer edge, which is something we're used to doing with watercolor, right? So just continue to do that. And if you're enjoying this video, if you could help me out, give this video a like, I'd appreciate it. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't yet and hit the notification bell so that you're notified when I post videos in the future. I just quickly added white to make a pink from my red. And we're just going to make those C-curve shapes we often talk about. We'll go back and blend this in, so don't worry about that. we're just trying to create that contrast between the light and the dark, and we might even go darker for some shadows as well later on. We'll see how this looks. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing soon with the other one, but I do want to blend this out. Just a little bit of a clean brush, a little bit of water, and you could leave it how it is if you want. I'm used to the whole blending technique because with watercolor, that's kind of what we do. So I'm not trying to make this look like watercolor. I'm simply trying to paint in my style. And I encourage you guys to do that. Paint in the style that you feel comfortable and that you're used to. And guys, feel free to leave me a comment below. Let me know what's your favorite flower so far. And do you like painting with gouache? Let me know what any tips you might have for that. It's a medium that's less well known than watercolor, for example, or acrylic. And a lot of people have never heard the word gouache. So, okay, let's go ahead and work on our leaves as they are drying there. This really bright lime green color is just, as you can see, my whole palette has intense colors, which is fine. But you need to make sure that you're mixing, adding in. We're just going to add in, we're going to make up our own colors. I added in some red to desaturate the green. And of course, now we got kind of a brown happening, adding in some lemon yellow to brighten that up again. I'm going for a dark shade. I shouldn't say dark, not intense, but it just has a very kind of dark tone to it, if that makes sense. It's not a bright, happy, sunny color, but I like it. It's got that greenish yellow thing happening. We're going to take our liner brush. If you don't have a liner, use a number 1 or number 2 for your details. A liner brush is one of my favorite, you guys. And it's going to give the most thin lines that you could ever ask for. So we're just going to do a straight line down the middle of the flower and then those diagonal lines fanning out and downward just to create those beautiful veins of our leaves. And then for our larger leaves on the top right side, I want to add in, you know what, actually, we're not going to use a liner here. I'm going to switch over to my number 6 round, a thicker brush. That's kind of what I'm going for. Sorry guys, sometimes you just have an epiphany in the moment and you just got to go for it. So we're going to do a nice little line down the center here, and then we're just going to fan out some lines, some diagonal lines, fanning outward and upward, and that'll be the center. I wanted to make sure that I'm leaving some of that color from below. It's such a gorgeous medium green color, and so this is going to give our leaves just some fun, and they're not going to be boring, that's for sure. Okay, so those are coming together quite nicely. Always clean off your brush, especially if you're going to dip into yellow, always. I promise you, you will never regret it. Yellow is such an easily disturbed color and tainted by other colors, so got to keep it nice and clean and pure. Alrighty, look at this light green color that we've created here. I just wanted to go over the top of these tiny little leaves so that they can have another bit of color. And you've got a bit of a lighter side with the darker color, kind of like a shadow side. It just gives them more dimension by having several different colors there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is we're going to take our cadmium yellow. It's a nice lovely yellow that leans more towards red, kind of a reddish orangey yellow. And I'm just going to dot in our centers everywhere except the roses because they don't have a center like that. Okay, so now it's time to start filling out this composition with some lovely green paint. And we're taking the same one that we used to cover up on top of our green leaves or to do the details. And I'm just doing some very simple, easy brush strokes, sometimes a stem, and then adding in just some little kind of thin leaves, almost looks like grass if you want to think of it like that. And just, we'll add another one in like this right here. So I'm just being very relaxed about it, not worrying too much about where I'm putting things. And as you're doing this is going to be a process that's going to take a little bit. You can do C curve shapes like we did for those bottom center leaves, or you can just do scratchy marks, squiggly marks, whatever looks good for you. Even in those places where there's a lot of white space in between flowers, you can just do some green marks, and that's going to look nice to fill out your composition and your bouquet with lots of lush green filler. So at this point, it's time to take a check-in of your body just to see, do you have any body tension right now? Are your shoulders up to your ears, or are you relaxed? This is supposed to be a relaxing painting process, and I encourage you to find that relaxation. One thing you can do is remind yourself this is supposed to be fun. This is fun. This is enjoyable. I'm not stressed. Because really, there's nothing stressful about painting in and of itself, but we tend to put that stressful story and narrative creeps into our head, reminding us that we're supposed to fear painting and putting paint down on paper and making marks, but we're really just playing and having fun. And so take a deep breath right now if you feel like you need to relax a little bit so that you can enjoy this process. I'm just using that brush again, making brush marks along a stem. Simple, simple. Let's fill it out a little bit more, adding in some stems to connect those tiny leaves to the main stem. Just have so much fun with this, guys. I hope you are enjoying this right now. And if you are, let me know what your favorite part of this is so far in the comments. Let me know if you're going to try this. I just absolutely love having these conversations with you guys. And it's always fun to get your thoughts and ideas on what to do differently or what we could do next time. So now I'm mixing up some black here with my liner brush. We're going to do that lovely technique I talk about all the time, stippling. So just taking our thin brush and we're making these little dots all over. Stippling is such a fancy sounding word, but it's just another form of putting dots on your paper. And I like doing these little black dots here on the flowers. And we're going to do that, but we're going to add some more pizzazz to it. We're going to start making some lines as well, out from the center of the flower, just over the top. I need a little bit more paint here, over the top of what we've already placed down with our lavender gouache, and a little bit more water. So here's the thing. If your brush isn't painting, add a little bit more water. We need that paint to flow. You can't just paint straight up gouache. You have to have a little bit of water in there. It's just not going, at least with the brand that I have, which is Holbein, it's not going to move. You need a little bit of water for that to be able to move smoothly. And so adding in those lines, and look at how our flower is gaining a lot more personality. It's really starting to blossom. I'm really not trying to be punny, but it's really giving it that pop of color and realism that we're looking for. So I'm having a little bit hard time here today, but that's okay. I'm going to keep trying. And sometimes if something doesn't work, you just keep trying until it does. Painting with a liner can be hard. It does not hold much water. It does not hold much pigment. And sometimes it's a little bit challenging to figure out how much you need to be able to smoothly paint. I'm just doing these dots here over those black lines. And of course, these are side facing, so you're only going to see the dots on those around those 3 petals. And then for this forward facing flower, of course, we'll do those dots on every single petal. Oh, I just love this look. It just looks like such a fancy queen flower. I hope you love it. And you can also do different shades. You can do different colors and really change it up however you see fit. All right, back to that dagger brush here. You can use around, use the brushes that you want. We're going to mix up some more of that red. I'm going to add some black and darken it up because I want to do a third value of red, really. Now we have almost a burgundy color here, and I'm just doing these C-curve shapes really quickly. I don't want to cover up all the red or all that pinkish red there as well. And we will blend this out, but I just want to put those marks down really fast. Don't think too much about it. Now wash off your brush really well and dab it on your paper towel or your rag. And then just take that clean brush and start blending those out so that you're not getting, and you could leave it like this if you wanted, but then you're not having like these very harsh C-curve shapes that don't always look as realistic. And so blending it out will give some soft edges. And look, now we have some shadowed sides that we've created on our flower, and it's going to be a lot more three-dimensional and just fun to paint like this. Love doing the layers with the different lightness and darkness values. All right, we're going to go for those large leaves there, add some more details. I've got some of that turquoise, green, red, yellow. I'm just looking for a good color that's going to contrast what I have there. Adding some black will darken it up, and I think that's it. So really just use what you have. If you have a dark green, if you don't, add black to it or add some red to it to darken it up. And we're just gonna, these guys need it too. So we'll add it in here on these little leaves at the bottom. but then also at the top right leaves, I want to give them some more of those veins, just really fine details. And that's a great thing when you layer, you start with overall color, and then you start building up those layers little by little. If you don't like a layer, paint over it and start again. There's just a lot of possibilities when you're painting with a medium like this. So now it is time for my favorite part, taking off that tape. I know some people aren't really into the tape peeling or don't understand why it's so awesome, but I just love it because all of a sudden you're able to reveal that beautiful border underneath your painting, and it also signifies that you are done. Your creation has come to an end, it is fully finished, and you can take a break. Go eat a cookie. Happy painting!